people tend to think a lot in terms of narrative character things, right? So like a Disney movie, for instance, you're dealing with very like complex bipedal characters. You know, they have these bones and these muscles and they can move this and that way. And then you can use that to tell a very, I guess, traditional kind of story where, you know, here's character A wants to do something and character B wants to stop character A, and then you form a plot from that, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think something that might be easy to ignore when it comes to motion graphics is you can pretty much you can give that same kind of treatment to something that doesn't necessarily look like a character, but you can still infuse a sense of life into something as if it were a character.
Fast forward to now, like, you know, where AI is sort of like, penetrating into those fields, and it's like really like a lot of uncertainty with what is actually going on, what's like the future of like studying, animation. And then sometimes it even gets down to jobs, how sure am I that, at the end of maybe my college, I'm going to like get like maybe like a good job, or and stuff like that. So I know this is like a lot of questions, like how do you think about these things? Like, how do you process it, and how do you I think people can sort of like navigate that.
I'd say college is still like really valuable in that sense, but I would say the thing that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to a college education is just the insane value of networking that you get from a college setting, because the Joey Cornman keynote that he gave at Ringling, that is a whole week-long event that we had dedicated to our motion design major at the college, where we had all of these like amazing professionals in the motion design sphere come to Ringling College throughout that week to give keynotes like that to us students.
All right. I should suppose more people will join in as we continue. Um, so for me, like I'm super excited to actually have you here. I think that when I the first time I actually really like took note of your work was when you like these exclusive cups that we're doing that Joey put together, and then he took over from me. Like I don't know if you like watched my chats with Joey. Like I was like that week I was so busy. Like I had like quite a number of things to do. So I didn't really like put my all in what I was doing, because like my attention was like divided, like we had like it was really intense for me. So I just had to like do something, and then my work cycle wasn't I couldn't quite get it done properly. Yeah. So, but then you took over, right? I didn't know what you were going to do. So, but then you got like the PNG file from me, right? Like on like you wanted to see like what I did. Then you came up with your stuff, and then it was like you like made like yeah, like you just use the idea, you like made the O's like the design was like really good, and then there was like these animals, they were like jumping, outside of like the stuff, and I'm like blown, like totally blown, like how do you even like think like that, how do you like even come up with these concepts and stuff. This is like me jumping the gun, because what I really want, like the first question should be like, okay, can you like just introduce yourself? That one is like I really need to like pick your brain on that.
No problem at all. Well, hi,
Yeah.
I'm Ana Kuster. I'm a motion designer currently specializing in interactive animation through tools like Rive. There's also Touch Designer, which I really love messing around with. And overall, I'm just very, very interested in applying the principles of motion design to the interactive field in general. So that's really what I'm doing right now. I very recently graduated from Ringling College's motion design program, right? So a lot of my training, a lot of what you see in my work really comes from everything I learned there, as well as everything I learned at the previous college that I went to before that. I've actually gone to 2 colleges at this point. Ringling College was my second, but before then, I actually went up to Canada to study at Sheridan College because well, if I actually like go in yeah, if I like go in chronological order throughout my life, right? So as a child, I knew right from the start that I wanted to work in something related to animated filmmaking, animated films, animation in general. I was really, really passionate and inspired by the Disney Renaissance films, like those 90s and 2000s Disney movies, the hand-drawn 2D animation. I was just all over that. And I was like, I want to work on that kind of stuff, right? So I knew right from the get-go that I wanted to do something related to animation. And over the years, I learned that Sheridan College over in Canada had a very prestigious Bachelor of Animation program. It was almost impossible to get into, but I saw the work that came out of that program, and I felt really attached to it. Years before I even applied there, I was like, yeah, I know I want to study there eventually. So what I did was I went to study at Sheridan. Before I applied to animation, what I studied was another art program that they had that was just called Visual and Creative Arts. It was just a very broad, very general art program. The way it worked was you could just basically choose almost all your classes. It was all electives, and you could like choose your own art path through that program. And what I did was they have this thing where they have a 1-year certificate program called Art Fundamentals. And what that does is it counts as the first year of visual and creative arts, which is a 2 or 3-year diploma. So what I said was, okay, I'm going to take Art Fundamentals for a year, and I'm going to use that to train up my skills for the portfolio that I need in order to apply to Sheridan's animation program. If that doesn't work out, then I'm going to stick with visual and creative arts, or, obviously if I get into animation, then I'm just going to move over into that program, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I start off with the Art Fundamentals classes, and I specifically remember, I still remember this day, it was my first 2D design class, the first ever time I took anything related to graphic design. And I remember going into that class. The mindset that I had was all like, this is like boring. I don't want to work with like shapes and letters and what's this about typography, right? Like this is all designy stuff. I just want to like draw characters bouncing around and moving and doing stuff, right? Like this is just going to be boring for me. I don't know. And then it might have also just been how amazing the instructor was, or just the subject of the class in general. But I just remember two or three classes after that, my mind suddenly did a 180. And I was like, wait a minute, this is the most fun thing ever. What? I ended up falling in love with graphic design through that class, to the point where like every other class I took after that in Art Fundamentals and in Visual and Creative Arts was all design oriented. I was in love with all of the design classes. And yes, I followed through with the Visual and Creative Arts program because I didn't get into the animation program by like this much. They give you a score. The way it works is they give your portfolio a score, and then they determine a cutoff score that you need to achieve in order to get into the animation program. And I was off by, I don't remember, I think it was like 5 percentage points or something. Nowadays, I was kind of sad about it, obviously, at the time. But nowadays, I actually consider it a blessing in disguise. Because what that let me do was I continued and I finished Visual and Creative Arts. And I realized at that point, I'm way too in love with design to fully abandon it. Right? So I'm starting to near the end of my visual and creative arts program. I'm like, well, am I going to go into like animation? I'm going to try to apply again. Am I going to go into something more related to graphic design? Right? I suddenly found myself at this crossroads where I had all of these different interests, and design wasn't the only thing. This is something I learned about myself in Sheridan. I'm like a sponge. I just love learning in general. I love acquiring new information and just learning new tools and new techniques all the time. That was really what kept me going and motivated me a lot in Sheridan. So I just went in with this sudden love of experimenting with as many wild, different, and new things as I could in my projects. As long as they allowed it, I always went for the craziest idea. um, so I just found myself at this awkward crossroads where I had so many interests and I knew I wanted to like merge them together in some way, but I had no idea how. So my mom and I were like looking for other colleges. Maybe I just study something else after I finish this diploma program at Sheridan. Like, who knows? And then we both learn about motion design at Ringling College, which is really funny because Florida is actually my home state. This was where I was born and grew up. So like I went all the way up to Canada to study at what was my dream college at the time. And then after we found out about motion design and talked with the department head, he's like amazing. And I was just like, yes, motion design is that mix that I was precisely looking for. This is going to let me like explore animation and graphic design at the same time, as well as let me experiment with other things if I know that I want to. So I went back from Canada all the way back home here in Florida. I did that motion design program for 4 years. I graduated very recently, just a few months ago, and that's pretty much where I am nowadays. So it's funny, at Ringling, what I ended up acquiring was a brand new interest in interactive design and animation in general. Because I've actually been in that sphere for a while. I've been very interested in VR and AR content, especially. Um, my thesis project back at Sheridan was actually a virtual reality gallery that I made with all the work that I had done in Sheridan College up to that point. So
that,
that's what I ended up, like so yeah, my kinds of ideas were like that weird, right? If my instructors were fine with it, I would just go do something crazy like that, right? So I took that with me into the motion design program, and then well, ever since then, we had this one class that the instructor decided to give where he gave us just a small Rive project to start experimenting with Rive. And that was the first real time that I touched Rive. And just after spending like 5 minutes in the interface, I was already like, oh my God, I'm in love. This is going to be my brand new addiction. And then it did end up being my brand new addiction. So here I am now.
yeah, like I mean, so interesting to like you like talk about like your experience, having to move from one state to the other. For me, like personally, I don't know like what it really feels like to like maybe attend like maybe like a what do you call it now, a design college, because yeah, in this part of the world, there's nothing like there's no university for design or anything of the sort. And most of us, like anybody that you see that is a motion designer, interactive animation, whatever, most of us like just do stuff on our own, like just maybe tutorials, courses, etc. And you try to like practice a lot and stuff like that. So when I hear people talk about like their experiences, I only wonder like what that's like, and it's really like but then I think Joey, right, the not Joey Jodkins, the Joey Coreyman of School of Motion.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
I think he also like I think he was teaching at Ringling at some point, because like I've like watched, because there are many times he actually spoke about that. There was one recently, one I think video, I think was it like a keynote at Ringling that he did. Yeah, like
I was at that physically.
oh wow, this oh my god, right? I mean, like I've not completed the entire stuff though because I was I think I'm like maybe 40 minutes in, and I'm definitely going to get back into like all the stuff that he's talking about, like and really like get into it because I mean, part of what he said is like inspiration for some of the things I'm doing. Like I just don't bother myself about like too much details. Like just move forward. Like get things done and stuff like that. Really amazing to know that. So we have that out of the way. Um, so now, so I'm really curious. Like, so basically, what you did at Sheridan is like just design, and stuff like that, and then you came to Ringling, and then you did motion design. So, but what I actually saw in your work was actually, like it has such like a solid foundation of like animation, fundamentals. So I'm like, okay, so what is it that you got from? Is it Ringling now? That really built in that fundamentals of animation, like just drives you to, or yeah, like not just there's what did you get from there? That's number one. Then there's also like how do you even like think about like these concepts? How do you like how do you think about these concepts? How do you get those ideas? How do you um then execute them in such a like beautiful way to have like such good animation? Like I'm really curious.
Oh, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the kind words. Um, it has a lot to do with the that obsession that I had really as a kid with animation in general and animated movies. Um, it got to the point where, and and my mom has talked about this as well. Like she, like she noticed how even as a kid I would like stay in the roll credits of a movie to like read and memorize the names that came up in the credits because even as a kid, I'm talking I was like 10 years old and I was already memorizing the names of like directors, voice actors, like animators. And it was crazy because like I knew I wanted to be informed about that kind of stuff because I knew that's what I really wanted to get into. So a big part of that was because I was born like right at the start of the 2000s. I still grew up with DVDs.
Yeah.
um, so naturally, what something that really helped me out, I think, to start understanding those production concepts, especially in animated films, was I was always addicted to those bonus features and behind the scenes things that they would add to DVDs in movies. I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about. Like when you purchase a DVD, it's not
Yeah.
just the movie, right? Like they would, and that's something I really miss as well. Like with streaming nowadays, that kind of content is a bit harder and harder to find because it's not just bonus features that you can check in a DVD real quick. But I always loved uh, prowling through all the bonus features in a DVD because they would have these like whole 20-minute videos of behind the scenes and how did these ideas start forming. They would sometimes have like random animation tests that they just threw in there for like apparently no reason. That was just free learning material. Uh so that kind of thing. And DVDs especially really clued me in on the fact like as like very very at a very very young age I was already conscious of the fact like there are people making these movies and there's a specific way that they use to make these movies, right? So
Yeah.
beyond that point I started getting really into, as you said, the I started learning about the principles of animation. I started watching a lot of videos about that. But even more than that, I think it was more of just a sense of something else I've realized about myself throughout my college years is I'm uh, just something again about myself. I'm really good at like being able to see something and sort of visually break it down into building blocks that let me understand it as a bigger picture. So what I mean by that is it was really easy for me as a kid to oh, actually this is something I talked about with one of my instructors at Ringling. So the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, right? The Jetsons, the Flintstones, like you know those kinds of
I don't.
cartoons.
No, I don't. Like, like we're all from like different cultures. Like the kind of cartoons that I'm aware of. Tom and Jerry. We watch that a lot. So I don't like really
No,
that, but we're not all that exposed to a lot of cartoon content. Growing up, because of like our own like cultural context,
no.
and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
you know
No,
what? Yeah.
yeah. Well, even with Tom and Jerry, because I watched a lot of the old Tom and Jerry cartoons as well. So even with Tom and Jerry, I would sometimes notice like the characters are drawn with this sort of different texture from the background, and like everything that moves tends to have like a very solid black line around it. Meanwhile, everything else in the background just has a very like painted look. I would notice these things as a kid, and like just noticing these things in general was already entertaining to me. I've had people call me crazy because as a kid I would watch the exact same movie like 20 or 30 times over the span
Yeah,
of a month.
like I'm part of like your team. Like I mean like, there was this movie like not even like an animation now. Okay, yes, I had animation that I would watch over and over and over again. I remember when Into the Spider-Verse came in. Oh my god, like I was watching it like I would watch it again. I would just sit down and just watch it and over, and I would just like sit down and just bask in the mood, and everything is like that's me. Like I can totally relate. Right? You can go ahead. Sorry.
No,
You continue.
no, of course, no. That's exactly it, right? So I had this specific rotation of movies on DVD that I would just play over and over and over again. And every time I watched one of these movies, I would always notice something new, right? Because I've already watched the same movie 20 times. There has to be something in here that I haven't seen, right? So it would always be like, oh, I didn't notice that like one random leaf in the background is like a bit bluer than all the other leaves in the background or something like that. I would start noticing these weird things. So with the with stuff like the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, the ones I mentioned at first, like the Jetsons and the Flintstones, those were really, how to describe this? It's those were very, very cheap productions at the time. And what they did was whenever the characters like spoke and it was just a normal shot of them speaking to someone, what they did was the only cells that they would animate was just the head and the mouth. And then the rest of the torso, like from the neck down, would be one single cell of animation. So the
Oh,
only part of their
just
body,
is
yeah,
the
exactly.
that's the only yeah.
Exactly. So the only part of their body that would move is the head and the mouth. And as a kid, I would notice those kinds of things. It's like, why do they like? I've seen Disney movies where people are just like still like normally moving a bit even as they're talking, but in these cartoons, like they stay completely still as they're talking. What's up with that? Like, what's the difference? I would just naturally notice these things as a kid, and I think that natural tendency of mine to hyperfixate on these tiny, inconsequential details was part of what led to me having a very accurate sense of timing and motion and because I've seen so many cartoons and movies and TV shows and everything at this point, I've built up this mental library of what are the things that feel fun to me? What what have I been exposed to in the past that makes me feel a specific way? And then I just take from that personal experience of mine and apply it to my animations. So that's what really informs me on the timing of my own thing. So the little like birds hopping up and down out of the holes for Joey's project. Um, for that, I knew I wanted this just a very exaggerated, cartoony, perhaps even low gravity thing, right? Because it's supposed to be an outer planet sort of setting. So I just cranked those easing handles all the way to the sides. Like those keyframes for the up and down on the Y. Like that's just that's the easing handle
The
thing. Like
undo, yeah, Bayesian undos, yeah.
the Bezier handle, yeah, exactly. I just cranked those all the way to like the opposite extremes. And that's how I get that really exaggerated, like immediately up, it stays in the air, then immediately back
They
down,
go
right?
around for a while.
Because for that kind of context, it's not supposed to feel realistic, right? If I wanted to make something like a little bouncing rubber ball that is supposed to be something that exists in our world, right? I wouldn't
Yeah,
have it be that exaggerated. It would be a slightly more toned down, like more parabolic movement, right?
yeah,
Because there's a specific sense of physics to how things go up and then go down based on their mass and their weight and everything. So you sort of just eyeball it and try to figure out how that thing might move based on its properties, and then you replicate that in your keyframes, right? So it's just a very it comes down to having a very nerdy passion about how things move, and not just how things move, because you can study reality for as long as you want. Uh, you can stare at bouncing balls all day. You can like watch all of Edward Muybridge's like animal movement photographs. You know, you can study as much reference material as you want, but at the end of the day, especially when it comes to motion design as an industry, you're most likely working with a client project that needs to communicate something very specific. So, how do you use animation in a very delightful and entertaining way in order to communicate a specific kind of feeling or message to something, right? Because it might make sense to exaggerate something or make something move very boring on purpose if it means you're communicating the thing that you want to communicate to your audience, right?
mm,
It's a lot of like very loosey goosey, separate ideas that I've just formed over the years that all tend to culminate into my sense of timing and rhythm and exaggeration and all these other principles of animation, how I personally apply them to my own work.
yeah. Sorry, a second. Sorry. So interesting, like, with that, you actually, like, spoke about, like, how you got to where you are, and, like, how you even actually, like, think about this project. One thing that stands out for me in what you said is the fact that you sort of, like, think about, like, what, like, is a purposeful thing. It's like, okay, like, I'm going to, like, okay, what's the purpose of this? What is this supposed to achieve? Then, you could go all, exaggerated, if that would actually allow for that. And, or you could go really boring if that's actually, what's meant to be done. I have, some questions along that line, because I've heard, like, Joey, also not Joey Judkins now, Joey of School of Motion,
Hartman.
actually, like, yeah, say stuff like that, and, when he was going to talk about motion design, and it's all, in its own mind, like, the way he spoke about it. I don't really like, because I haven't gotten any School of Motion course. But I think I've been able to, like, see some parts of it, and, where it was actually, like, talking about, like, like, talking about like this purpose, to motion, and like this this sense of the same way design is, yeah, supposed to, motion is also supposed to be purposeful as well. But I'm really curious, like, it means when you say purpose, like, it's really like a big thing. Because I mean, let's say for instance, I want to move from this keyframe to another keyframe. Like, I know, like, how do I, like, how do you, like I don't know, like, it's to say the motion is supposed to be purple. So like, how do you like, okay, let's say for instance you have like this keyframe and that keyframe, and for instance, like, in for maybe stuff that are supposed to move, maybe like the character movement and stuff like that, those things are actually pretty obvious. Like, it might say, oh, maybe for this particular character I just like this goofy move, or like I just wanted to do stuff like that. How do you do something like that for, like, maybe when you're like working on like a motion design project where you have like shapes, and then you're coming to like maybe I don't know that set of like shapes and stuff like that. I've always like wondered, like, how do you people like come up with like this, like, even like beautiful transitions between like one frame and the other. Is it same purpose? And if if the whole thing is like this purpose driven stuff, like, how do you like how do you how because how do you how do you apply that to abstract things, like, like motion design? Because it bugs me. Like, I mean, I've really been trying to, like, wrap my head around it. I've heard people talk about it, but for me, like, it's just like, okay, like, what are these people saying? Like, I don't know
Mhm.
if you care to like explain, or if you, yeah.
No, no, of course, yeah. Um, at least for me, part of what helps me out, I think one of the things that people might not consider a lot when it comes to motion graphics in general is people tend to think a lot in terms of narrative character things, right? So like a Disney movie, for instance, you're dealing with very like complex bipedal characters. They have these bones and these muscles and they can move this and that way. And then you can use that to tell a very, I guess, traditional kind of story where, here's character A wants to do something and character B wants to stop character A, and then you form a plot from that, right?
Yeah, sure.
I think something that might be easy to ignore when it comes to motion graphics is you can pretty much you can give that same kind of treatment to something that doesn't necessarily look like a character, but you can still infuse a sense of life into something as if it were a character. So even if you're still working with something as simple as a client logo or just these weird random abstract shapes that you're dealing with, or effects or typography. I mean, typography is huge, obviously, in motion design. Typography is everything for commercials, especially. How do you use typography in a very expressive way that catches somebody's attention, right? How do you make the words or letters or the lines of words come up in a very flashy way, in a way that communicates the story, right? When it comes to motion design, animation, I would say, is doing almost as much work as the design part of the project, right? Because there are these two halves that are coming together in motion design projects, and they're the design half, which is usually what gets done first. It's sort of the previs phase in motion design where we determine, okay, how is this going to look? What kind of effect is it going to have? Are we going to use, I don't know, Helvetica or Cooper? Are we going to use white or black, right? It's determining the look. And then after that, it's the animation. It's determining how those things move. So these are two halves. And I mean, design is naturally, I would think, the most fundamental and important aspect because you can't fix bad design with awesome animation, right? The design has to work before anything is done to make it move, right? But
That's true.
once that design is done and once you get to that movement stage, I believe really those two halves have equal importance to each other when it comes to communicating the story and ensuring that everything comes off in the way that whoever's in charge of the video wants it to come off as, whether it's yourself as a personal project or the client that you're working for some commercial they want to air on TV. Um, it's all about that. It's about like making sure that these two halves are working side by side in order to make sure that everything's being communicated properly. And part of that has a lot to do with yeah, like treating the shapes and the type themselves as if they were characters, right? So if I'm supposed to make the audience feel sad, or I don't know, contrast does a lot. Just the principle of contrast in general does a lot to communicate things very well. So I don't know, if you needed to make a commercial for a car tire, for instance, and you just want to imply something like, oh, if you buy this car tire, then your car will go really fast. And this is a very stupid example, but I'm just like trying to pull something out of thin air here. So let's just say I want to sell a car tire because this car tire will make you go faster than most car tires, right? Oh, what could you do? You could set aside the competitor as a very slow kind of car tire versus a really fast kind of car tire. So you can start thinking of the car tire itself as a character in that context, where all of a sudden you're like, how can I move this in a way where I'm saying the thing I want to say, right? So if the point is to make one brand of car tire look fast, well, what does fast mean in terms of motion? What do people think of when they think of the word fast? Do they think of cheetahs? Do they think of something falling through the air? Do they think of, I don't know, a race car, like something like NASCAR or Formula One? What do people think of when they think of the word fast? And then how does that movement translate into the specific object that you're working with in that project, right? So you take all those elements of the word fast and then you apply them to something as simple as, if it's a car tire from the side, then it's literally just an ellipse. It's literally just a circle. There's so much you could do to a circle to bend it, twist it, stretch it, do whatever to it, to apply the principles of animation to it and make it move in a very expressive way, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm thinking fast, like me personally, I think fast, I think of like something on caffeine, right? I'm thinking of something just like rushing. I'm thinking of something that leaves a trail of fire behind it as it rushes forward. So all of these details, I sort of let them cram themselves into my brain. And then usually, same as anybody else, I take notes on whatever I'm thinking. I maybe start making a mind map. I start writing words down. And then I use those words as the base for the kind of movement that I want to have. So then I'm like, okay, if I wanted to go fast, then I know the distance between the keyframes of when it's here and when it's here need to be very close to each other in order for that to be very fast, right? I want this thing to zip across the screen. So all of that, I'm not sure that like accurately answers what you were asking about, but when it comes to purpose.
Sure, it does. Yeah, like like it really does. Like, because for me, like what you said, like, sort of like, open, like, a way of thinking. Honestly, like, I've not had before. Like I would I've been doing a lot of motion design, for a while, but maybe not like, at the level of like, like we all see like these giant talents, all the studios, like, we want to be like them. And it's sometimes, you're making your own work and you're like, okay, what's the difference? Like, how come like mine is not as good? And, it comes to like, little details like this, not even like, ability to do things. It's like, oh, okay, like okay, what exactly are you trying to do? And what exactly is the motion movement start trying to do? Not just like applying like a bunch of different, techniques, and just, trying to do all sort of things just to make, it move. What you just said, like, really brought a love, a clarity to the way I actually see things. So that's who I have, like two other questions. What's the time? Oh my god, it's 40 minutes already. um, okay, so yeah, so there is that. So thank you so much for that. Then something that really strikes me is like, when looking at like, your I actually went through like this is like it's like I don't know really like, it's a little bit of deviation from what we just spoke about. It's actually about like, you have like these sets of like awards, like, like I don't know, like maybe five or six of them, like, and it's just there, like these are what down. I'm like, okay, how did that? What in the world? Like, how did you like, amass these things? Like, I don't know, like it's not related to it's not like related to
Oh, I mean, it helps a lot. This is like one of the very just one of the advantages really of being able to go to a college education like Ringling is you're exposed to a ton of opportunities and a ton of events where uh, I mean really the big deal everybody thinks about college is like, oh, the place where you go to learn the skills that you need for the industry. Really, I would say nowadays, especially since it's so easy to teach yourself things through just YouTube tutorials or anything out there, right? I mean, it's as you say, I mean, look at all the amazing stuff you do. I mean, I'm personally, if I could just like talk for a moment about this, your like walking character thing with the rigged like up, down, left, right arrows, that just blows my mind.
oh wow.
No, genuinely, that was so impressive to me, and I actually remember because you know what I have actually like followed some of your content even before Joey's group project thing. I knew about your character rig that you did like because you started that a long time ago. And that was at a time when even I was still like, oh my god, how did he do that? I have no idea how to do that in Rive.
I
so
don't know, like yeah.
so so I found that really impressive, right? But even hearing that, like what you said about like, oh, there's like no formal training, right? You just learn as you go, right?
Yeah.
Because it's getting easier and easier to learn software through that and learn the skills that you need in order to get good at whatever uh, the creative subject you want to get into. I'd say college is still like really valuable in that sense, but I would say the thing that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to a college education is just the insane value of networking that you get from a college setting because the Joey Cornman keynote that he gave at Ringling, that is a whole week-long event that we had dedicated to our motion design major at the college, where we had all of these like amazing professionals in the motion design sphere come to Ringling College throughout that week to give keynotes like that to us students. And it's also a wonderful opportunity to get to chat with them, talk with them about whatever. We get to learn so many things about the presentations that they give, right? So that's the insane value of a college like, especially college like Ringling. I I just feel really blessed. Like I've just had a lot of, uh, I guess I've had a string of good things in my life that have allowed me to be passionate about the things that I'm passionate about, and that's definitely one of them. Like I feel blessed and lucky that I came from a background that allowed me to go to a setting like that in order to absorb as much as I could from that experience. So part of that involves like our instructors are always telling us about all these contests and shows that we can submit our work to. And that's primarily where that list of awards comes from. I mean, we're given a suggestion of things to apply our work to, and it's really not as complicated as I thought it was, especially back in my Sheridan years. Right? Because usually the way I thought about those awards was like, well, yeah, I know you need to like know people in order to get into those things, right? Because they're like very high level, getting those kinds of trophies and awards and stuff. And then it was at Ringling where I really just learned like, no, you could just send your work and it's judged, and it's as simple as that.
Um,
So when as soon as you learn that like, you can really just apply to 50 different shows to see if you win anything from those. I mean that was really when I put two and two together, and I was like, oh, no wonder so many people can end up with so many awards dedicated to like their entire body of work or just a single project. It's just because you could just spam entries to a bunch of those events and contests. So they encouraged us a lot to do that at Ringling. So that's where that like big list of awards comes from.
yeah, and so before I allow people to actually ask their questions, there's this last question I have, which is so like part of it, thank God we spoke about this now, which is so how like you already highlighted one very good reason why you think someone should actually attend a college for animation, which is the networking that you actually get and all these different opportunities and all that so but that said would you still advise aside from that could there still be maybe other reasons for someone to actually choose to attend an animation college? That's number one. Number two is in the with the advent of AI and stuff, do you how does that how do you think about that, and how do you still feel people should still because for me I've always had this dream I want to go study animation at Goblins. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yeah,
Yeah, but I know the school you're talking about. Yeah, the one in France, right?
yeah, I mean, since 20, I can't remember, probably 2019. That's how many years ago now? 7 years ago. I found these guys on YouTube, and I I was consuming their content. I would download, I'll find ways to download the videos. I'll just keep watching. I'm I want to do stuff like that, but then you find out oh, in order for you to go there, it's really expensive, and stuff like that, except maybe you get scholarships, and stuff like that. So the best you can do is just okay, I just like this stuff, right? And try your best, on your own, try to work, and improve yourself and stuff like that. So, but fast forward to now, where AI is sort of penetrating into those fields, and it's really a lot of uncertainty, with what is actually going on, what's the future of studying animation. And then sometimes it even gets down to jobs you just see this random post on LinkedIn, for instance, and you just hear someone saying that, oh, maybe you just graduated, or yeah, she just graduated, and they're talking about oh, maybe they don't have jobs, or they don't have gigs, they're struggling with this or they're struggling with that, sometimes it goes through my mind. I'm okay, if I actually even really push, let's say I decide to okay, know what I'm going to try to apply. I'm going to work myself up, do a lot of work, get a portfolio that can apply to this school. How sure am I that at the end of the maybe my college, I'm going to maybe get a good job, or and stuff like that. So how do you, I know this is a lot of questions, how do you think about these things? How do you process it, and how do you I think people can sort of navigate that.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's the last question.
like no, it's fine. And I do think those two questions actually have a lot to do with each other, because The first one you mentioned. So like, what other things are there that are valuable about the college experience apart from the networking? It kind of goes hand in hand with networking, where I would say any kind of college experience, I would probably go as far as to say, even for probably an online college, even, it's the feeling of knowing that you're not alone in the learning journey that you're taking, right? Because when you're at a college, and I felt this so much at Sheridan and at Ringling, you're constantly surrounded by people with more or less the same interests as you, or like you meet someone who's completely different, who like likes a completely different set of things that you probably aren't even interested in, but the way they apply their skills to it might be interesting to you. So you chat with that person, you try to learn as much from them, and you try to give what you know to them as well. So it's this constant exchange of information between people who, mm, on the surface, might not be that related to each other, but they everybody, because right, especially Ringling, I mean, it's an art and design college, right? Everybody there is interested in art in some way, so that's already a nice conversation starter. Just the aspect of being able to socialize with like-minded people was uh, was something that to me was just an invaluable part of, especially Ringling, because I actually, my time attending Sheridan College's programs was right around the time that COVID hit. So nearly all of my classes at Sheridan College were remote, right? So that didn't give me as much of a chance to have that like physical socializing experience that I was able to have later on at Ringling. But I would say, even if it's online, even if it's physical, right? Because in Sheridan, for instance, I couldn't like talk to someone face to face at a Starbucks or whatever, but I could still have like a Zoom or a Discord call with someone if I really wanted to chat with somebody for a while. I was part of a whole group project where we just made a Discord server and we communicated entirely through that. And we actually like became even closer friends after that experience. So even if it's an online kind of schooling, I would still say that the sense of the feeling of knowing that what you're getting into is going to expose you to so many people who have the same interests and want to learn the same things that you want to learn, and they want to apply their skills in ways that you might have never realized, and there's this massive potential for sharing that information among everybody in your group, right? That's a massive thing about that. And relative to AI, as you were saying, I mean, I've fiddled around with it. I love the AI agent in Rive because I especially think that example, the AI agent in Rive, for instance, I think that's a wonderful case of where AI is most useful right now, where it's, I know the idea I want to have, I know the kind of creative control that I want over it. I just don't know the minutiae. Like, I don't know the exact details of the 1, 2, 3 steps to get to what I want, but I know what I want. So I can just tell the tool inside the thing, hey, this is what I specifically want. Build this for me, right? I feel like the biggest issue that could come from an AI tool is when you're expecting it to do all of the work, both creative and execution, all at once. When the best AI assisted work that I've personally seen comes from people who know what they're doing, who have had the craft for years. Like, an illustrator or a graphic designer who has already done their thing. Um, the, I guess, the traditional way, the like real way, some people would say, right? And then they're able to pass on those very specific instructions to something like an AI tool, right? So even in that, in terms of the threat that has to job security in general. I mean, to be honest, I can't really say that I'm an expert on that subject as well. Like, I just graduated, so I'm still trying to get into what all of that means. AI technology has advanced at such a ridiculous rate. It's gone by so incredibly fast that nobody really has the time to process what the differences are between the pre-AI world and the post-AI world, right? Like, we're still trying to figure out what all the effects of that are. So that's something that I'm also still trying to learn. Um, just last night, I was reading an article about the impact that these like AI hiring tools might have on the kinds of applicants, job applicants that may or may not get accepted to these like bigger Fortune 500 companies, for instance, right? It's a huge thing right now, and I can't say that I know everything about it because I don't. But well, what I can say is more than at any time right now, people really value human connection a lot. And 9 times out of this was also something that at Ringling they taught us about networking. 9 times out of 10, people, when somebody needs to fill a role in their team, in their project for whatever, 9 times out of 10, they're going to trust the person they've already spoken to and they already know versus someone who applied through some form and you don't even know what they look like, what they sound like, what their personality is. Can I vibe with this person? Am I going to have a good time with them? So more importantly now than ever, it's crucial to form connections, to actually talk to people, to put yourself out there and try to look for those opportunities where you can really get your own face and your own voice in front of someone to let someone know what you are, who you are as a person, right? And
Yeah.
I honestly think that's the way to like really, if you want to put it this way, like beat the AI algorithm at that filtering process. It's just get to the root of the connection. Just talk to people. Just get out there and start being a part of those communities that you want to be a part of. And so the college experience is again a very massive help in that. You're surrounded by people who are going to be in the industry in one way or another, either way, right? So that connection aspect is something insanely valuable about the college experience in general.
Yeah, and I mean, I really love what you said there because I mean, it's not like let's say AI is good with whatever. AI is not going to directly go to pitch the companies or reach out to someone else. Like, we're still going to be the one like reaching out to other people and telling them what we can do, like and telling us them our ideas, and we can then use AI in whatever whatever, I don't know what word to use now to like, execute our ideas. We'll still be the people like, selling, services, and stuff like that. AI is not going to go pitch clients or like, network, and, get the jobs, for us. So thank you so much for that. Please, anybody, like if you have questions, definitely, you can actually go ahead to ask your question. Dara, can ask your question if you have a question. Then, and yeah, here you can go ahead to speak.
Okay. Hey, do you have like a dream client or a dream studio you want to work for, or like do a project with them?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, there were several, especially from my time at Ringling. I mean, if you had asked me that while I was at Sheridan versus while I was at Ringling, you would have gotten completely different answers to that, genuinely, because like my North Star and where I was heading in life was completely different at those several points of my college years. So I don't know. I mean, I would have said something like Disney when I was a kid, right? Up to when I was at Sheridan. Nowadays, There are a lot of studios that I really look up to, right? Even though I've chosen to specialize a lot more in the Rive side of things. I mean, I've been paying a lot of attention to those kinds of studios and what they're doing, even just to gather stuff as reference material because of the
Mm.
insane quality of work itself, right? Like, not even thinking of it as, oh, I'd really hope to work with these people someday. It's like, no, like, I want my work to be like that quality. How do I achieve it? So it goes back to the thing I was saying about how hyper fixated I get on those tiny details. I watch something like 50 times over and over and over again because I want to take it in as much as possible. So I mean, I don't know. We were precisely talking about Joey Judkins's group project. I mean, We Write at Dawn has made some amazing work. I love checking out their website every now and then. That's a huge inspiration for me when it comes to Rive work. I've just seen what individual artists have done over the past several months. Like you, Barnabas, or Isagantu. I forget his name, but the guy who worked with someone else to make like that insane. It was for one of the previous Rive challenges. That insane he based his design off of like an Italian designer or something, and it was a whole experience that included like a
Oh, like
calculator and you know what I'm talking
Javier
about.
or
Yeah.
Oh, I
So just insane stuff like that. I like save those links and have it in my little massive folder of random links of references, right? So
wow.
it's I guess I don't know, especially since nowadays yeah, it's been like just about 2 months, I'd say, since I've graduated formally, right? So uh when it comes to Rive work, especially, I've seen that a lot of it tends to be more freelance stuff than anything, right? So even at this point, I'm still trying to like determine what my North Star is going to be, right? Like, am I gonna go work at a company? Am I gonna stay freelance? Because I've already started off with a few freelance projects here and there. Am I just gonna stick to the freelance path for now, right? So I don't really have that sense of like, oh, I want to work here. I want to work with these people specifically. I want to work with like that level. Right now, I'm more at a phase where like I want to figure out what the possibilities are out there for my career before I like cement myself in one specific path. But yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of companies. I mean, especially in motion design in general. There's the typical ones. I mean, Hornet, Buck. Um, there was this one I was really inspired by for a while called Gasket Studios. Odd Fellows, Meister. I mean, that's the list goes on and on. I've been inspired by a ton of studios and artists' work, and as I say, I've been pulling that into my own, or what I call reference library.
Yes.
That's something that I think everybody should do in general. Just have a like, even if it's something as simple and rudimentary as a Google Doc that just becomes like 500 pages long, you just have a document, have something that you can easily access on your computer, on your phone, on your laptop, anywhere, where you could just immediately slap something on there as soon as you see something that's interesting. And you want to be like, oh, there's something I really like about what that person did. I want to study it closely at a later point. And then you just save it in your list of references.
Yeah, interesting. Do you still have any questions? Yeah, you could go ahead. Dara, if you have any questions, just let us know. Then Sonia, I don't know. All right, so anybody with any other questions, so we could actually call it today, for this chat. And thank you, Anna, for the kind words, by the way. Like, like like myself, like, sometimes like I'm looking at myself and my work. I don't know, like I see it like myself, like I need to like make a lot of improvements. So like I'm like trying to do like a lot more personal projects, like test like my boost like my design skills and just do a lot of stuff. And then I've been doing a lot of posting these days. I just post all my stuff. Like I don't know, like so sometimes like when I post, like I don't get, so many reactions, and sometimes in my head I'm like, you're a terrible, you're a terrible designer or whatever. Like, just sometimes like I just like, okay, I'm still going to do my stuff anyways. So like, that's me. But thanks for the kind words. So now I,
Oh, of course. I mean, even I don't know. There's still so much that I need to improve on personally, and a
yeah.
lot of it, well, not even in terms of improvement. I mean, Rive. I think over the past 2 months, there hasn't been a moment where I've opened Rive and it hasn't told me that there's been an update available. Right? I feel like
Uh,
especially recently, the Rive team has really just pushed the throttle on getting as many updates and progressing as much as they can on brand new features and brand new UI updates. Like it's just been this constant fast track forward, which is amazing to see. The funny side effect of it is, every once in a while, it almost feels like you're opening a completely different tool sometimes. So you kind of have to take an hour or two to relearn how everything works and see how everything's set up, right? I mean, it's one of the funny side effects of working with something that's still technically in beta, right? But and I personally love it. Again, that addiction to learning new stuff all the time. I'm fascinated with the idea of using a tool that is still in active development. Because everything I used before Rive, it was your typical Adobe tools, same as
yeah,
always, and those have already existed for decades, literally.
yeah.
There's not much else to do with that software, right? And then Rive, it's like, oh my gosh, from one day to another, the state machine looks completely different for the fifth time. What's going on here? This is so cool.
Yeah, man. Honestly, for me, like I feel blessed to be at this building stage for Rive because I'll probably be at you too, like you probably be one of those guys that maybe when you make some tutorials and then people will be like, okay, like how did you know that? Oh, did he or she know all that stuff? Because you were there from the ground up, so like you'd be able to do a lot of experiments, and a lot of things already that you can actually teach newer generations. Thank you so much, Anna, for choosing to come on this chat. I really appreciate you. Thank you for you've been awesome, amazing, all throughout the chat. um yeah, so that's it for me, right? Since nobody else asked questions, it's been awesome time, for me, and I believe everybody else, so that he asked a question. All right,
Not a question, not a question per se. I just want to appreciate Hannah for what she has shared. I've really gained a lot from what she said this night. Thank you a lot.
yeah,
I really
thanks.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'll be in touch, texting once in a while, trying to find out, what's going on, what you're up to, etc. and stuff like that. Thank you so much. This video is actually going to be uploaded to YouTube, so I'm going to have to get your maybe YouTube channel or something so I could add you as a collaborator. Yeah. Some people don't yeah, sure. All right, take care of yourself, bye everybody.